And we welcome you into the spotlight on a fine but hot summer day. Thanks so much for joining us here on a Monday. My name is Drew Brent, and if you are in the market for buying or selling your home, give us a call, 479-968-5668, or cruise on over to russellvilleliving.com. Our guest at this time is the director of the Hope Center here in Russellville. His name is Spencer Kilgore. Spencer, thanks so much for being a part of the show today, man.
My pleasure. Thank you for letting me come out and hang out with you for a bit.
So, let's establish a baseline here. What is the Hope Center?
Mighty glad that you asked.
that's the whole reason you're here. So let's talk about it.
Well, the Hope Center is a year-long faith-based recovery program, and we have 24 beds available for men age 18 and up that are looking for a way out of addiction.
Okay.
And so we focus on discipleship and faith-based programming and mentoring, counseling, and case management for the addicted and the marginalized. And they stay with us for 1 year while they get their healing from that addiction.
Where are we seeing these people coming from? Are they primarily from the River Valley, or are they all over?
They're from all over. We get a good bit of people here from Pope and Yell County, but we do have outreach teams that travel all over the South, and we hand out cards to just the public just to let them know that there are places like the Hope Center where you can get hope and not to give up if you have a loved one that's struggling with addiction. And so through that, we get a lot of people that come from the surrounding states as well. So,
what is the, I guess, how do you get to the Hope Center? And I'm not talking necessarily about directionally, but when you're talking about addiction, it's such a broad topic. How does somebody get from one place to the Hope Center typically? What's that track look like?
Well, the track can be a little bit of desperation, I think, because the Hope Center is such an intense long-term program. You know, it's just what it is. It's a long-term program. It's a radical commitment to say, hey, I'm gonna take the next year of my life, you know, to really reset and recalibrate and get some healing and work on dysfunctional patterns and get back to living whole again. So a lot of the people that we help have usually tried other options of trying to get back on track that were not so intense or long term, you know, and we're talking interventions from family and maybe other programs that were a little shorter, or, you know, trying to get it together on their own and, you know, things like that. And for one reason or another, they still have come to the place where they say, hey, something has got to give here. Sure. And you know what, I'm going to do something radical because I'm ready to put this behind me.
So the intensity of the program is intentional.
It is.
Okay, let's talk about that. I mean, when you say the intensity of the program, I don't think we really are grasping, yes, it's a year long. What does the program look like?
Yeah.
And can you expound on that?
Yeah. So our guys stay incredibly busy. Usually they're getting up around 6 o'clock in the morning, and, you know, they're doing their chores and doing their morning devotion and meditation and getting all that stuff done in the morning. We're really big on that. We just know that, I'm sure you've experienced this, that life is tough. Whether you've had an addiction or not, life can throw some things at you on any given day.
I've experienced that recently.
Yes. So you and I know it doesn't matter if you had an addiction problem or not. It makes sense to take some time in the morning and try to get your heart right and your emotional man or woman right, and to kind of just get centered, and if you're a spiritual man, get right with God and spend that time, because then the day has a lot of time to get their hooks into you. So,
right.
So we start there, and we have an education portion of the program. So we have an education coordinator that facilitates classes for all of our guys. They're going to be down at our wood shop making beautiful crosses and handmade plaques and all sorts of things that they make in our vocational training program. Our outreach and fundraising teams go out 3 days a week and go out and just share their testimony and share their story in the community. And we raise money for the Hope Center as a nonprofit. Then the counseling and the chapels that we do Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock. Do that. Church on Sunday, rest time. We just did a field trip yesterday. We went to Lake Dardanelle and then up to Mount Nebo and went swimming, and did a random spontaneous baptism at the Mount Nebo pool yesterday. Just dunked them and sealed the deal there and did that. So I think the intensity is in the fact that we are deliberate about not having a lot of free time. There, of course, you know, the guys get rec time, they get rest time, they get field trips. But really, at the end of the day, if you come to the Hope Center, you came because there's a lot of work that needs to be done. and we're trying to see to it that we can accommodate and set that up for you to do that work so you can never go back to the life of drugs or alcohol that you were stuck in before you came in. The other piece of the intensity is just the fact that it's long.
Right.
You're going to hit every holiday during your stay before you come in and when you graduate. A year-long stay anywhere is no joke, So it's intense in the length of the program too.
I want to step back from that for just a moment and talk about the broader Hope Center. The CEO is Don Norton, who is that right? CEO, that's
Yes.
his official title. Okay.
Yes.
Don Norton has River Valley roots, but he is now the lead pastor at CT Church in Houston, which is one of the larger churches in the Houston area. And then I believe it's his brother-in-law, John Ashcraft, was a pastor here at Journey Church in Russellville for a long time. So this has a lot of River Valley roots, doesn't it?
It really does. And, Pastor Don's an amazing leader. And, it's so funny because when he comes into town and, he'll come and visit and we'll go down to Old South and grab a bite to eat. It's almost like watching like the some kind of Godfather figure, where he comes in and he's sitting at a booth and everybody that has been here for any length of time is coming by to talk to him and,
Right.
and say hi. And I'm just, in his shadows there, and he's just an awesome leader and has been kind enough to introduce me to a bunch of people here from Dardanelle and Russellville too. And good man.
Yes, a very good man. Can attest to that. He's always been very good to me in the couple of interactions I've had with him. And John Ashcraft, I've always said is a saint. So there is
That's right.
There is that. Let's talk about the addiction portion for this for just a few moments. It's not necessarily a happy topic, but it is a real topic. According to the NIH, Arkansas doesn't rank well among addiction statistics for the rest of the states. What are the primary reasons that you have seen that start the path to addiction?
Well, my answer would probably be different now than what it would have been 10 years ago when I first got into this. I think more and more what I see and what I really believe is that a lot of addiction stems from trauma.
Mhm.
And, I think trauma is subjective. What might be traumatic for you might not be traumatic for me and vice versa.
Sure.
And when you're in the helping people business, our job isn't to judge or decide that. If someone comes in and we really listen and we hear their story and we pay attention to that, and we're deliberate in that, we see that anyone that has gone into an addiction has been through some things, and as we begin to unpack that in conversation or in counseling or just in mentoring and in chapels and all that kind of stuff, we start to really get an idea if you can be emotionally intelligent enough to put yourself in their shoes and have some empathy and say, I don't know what I would have done if I would have been in this person's shoes. Maybe
Sure.
I would have gone down their path, maybe not. But you know what? I can at least understand now
Right.
how they may have gotten to this place where addiction or alcoholism became a real option for them because they were trying to escape their pain.
For so many years, addiction had such a stigma to it. It's almost treated as a I don't even almost like somebody needs to be disciplined. But now, the comments that you're making seem to be pivoting more towards more empathy towards how this started as opposed to where we are. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think so. And I know, I can just speak for myself and my own leadership in doing this for a little while now is, we're not the moral police. My job isn't to say, to have any sort of judgment against you or the things that you've done. If you've made a brave enough step to say that you want to come to the Hope Center and you want to do something about it, then guess what? I'm going to meet you right where you're at,
Right.
And I've had people that have been wise enough and loving enough to do that with me in my own life.
Sure.
So, part of my calling is to do that for the next man or woman that needs help, Yeah.
When we have these conversations too, I think it's very interesting. I want to go back to that stigma just a little bit because addiction does still have a stigma. How do you combat that a little bit? Because I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that somebody who is dealing with addiction is already fairly aware of what the stigma is,
Yeah.
and might not be so open to asking for help just because of what that stigma looks like. First, how do you combat the stigma? And then two, how do you get these folks to open up to say, hey, guess what? This is where I am, but this is where I want to be.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good question. I think for the stigma piece, a lot of that is just about having conversations and having influence and normalizing addiction,
Hmm.
because one of the biggest reasons why people don't get help is because they feel so unique in what they've done, in the guilt and the shame,
Right. I'm the only person who's ever done this kind of a thing.
and they feel so alone,
Hmm.
and so then they just get paralyzed and they don't reach out for help, and that to me that's so tragic, um, because I know people, and I know that addictions take many shapes and forms, and um, I would venture to say that most of us, somehow, some way, have probably ventured into some sort of addictive pattern into our life. It may not be drugs or alcohol, but it could be overeating. It could be the
Could be
tech
the
stuff. Oh
phones.
my gosh, now I'm getting guilty. Uh,
Could be the phones.
Lord, it's getting a little hot in here.
Yeah. So warm up.
But if we can start to just be brave enough to just see that and start to realize these are people. Yes, they have probably done some things while they were in their addiction that were hurtful, and not to take away from that. And there might be some amends that need to be made, and some wrongs that need to be made right along the journey of healing too. There's no doubt about that. Um, but I think part of the stigma thing is just really, it really starts with you and I just having conversations and just saying, you know what, I may not be doing that, but in a lot of ways, I'm no better. I have done this, or
Right.
I have made mistakes, or I have lashed out and acted out when I was in pain, you know. And we have to be caring and compassionate enough to care,
Hmm.
even if we don't fully understand, but to care anyways.
Right.
So.
We're talking to Spencer Kilgore. He is the director of the Hope Center here in Russellville. Give us that phone number real quick. If people are needing to reach out, how do they get a hold of you?
Absolutely. Yeah, so you can reach out to me at area code 281-743-2713.
And we'll have that number listed at the bottom of your screen there. Remember, too, if you are interested in buying or selling a home, give us a call, 479-968-5668, or cruise on over to russellvilleliving.com. If you miss any part of this interview, and we're not done yet, but if you do miss any part of this interview and you'd like to take it on the go with you, check it out on Google Play, Spotify, iTunes, or Anchor, wherever you get your podcasts. It'll be up in the next couple of days. And you can also check out all of the Spotlight episodes on your favorite podcast provider. Spencer, I want to come back to you for just a little bit here. We've talked a lot about the Hope Center. We've talked a lot about addiction, but we haven't talked a lot about you. You're fairly new to the River Valley. What's your background?
I am. Well, I'm a Midwest boy, born and raised in Northeast Ohio, between Cleveland, Ohio, and Pittsburgh, PA. Spent my years there. In my teenage years, I developed an addiction myself, and ended up reaching out for help and went through a program called Teen Challenge in Long Island, New York, about 11 years ago, and had my life radically turned around. And really, due to that being a catalyst in my life, I've been on a mission to help people ever since.
Sure.
You know, I spent a little bit of time out in California and went out to San Jose in the Bay Area and was a director of a few teen challenges out there for around 8 years. Came back to Ohio for 2 and helped out in Youngstown, Ohio, and we started up some really neat clinical programming and some good counseling and therapy programs to go along with our discipleship programs there. And then I got a call about this place in Russellville, Arkansas, and I hadn't even thought about Arkansas. I just remembered it was that state that had the SAS that you don't pronounce at the end.
Right,
And-
which is technically illegal. By the way, there's a
Is it?
state law that it's on the books somewhere. It's pronounced Arkansas, not Arkansas, and it's a state law to pronounce it that way. So there's your fun fact of the day.
I'm glad I'm on the right side of the law today then.
Absolutely, all kinds of laws that we have passed and laws that we haven't.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm astounded by that. But please continue.
Yeah, and I moved here 11 months ago and came down and went to Mount Nebo and did some hiking and some praying and fell in love with nature in the area here. And the first thing I noticed about the River Valley when I came down here to see if I was going to move was that everyone was so kind. I had never met such a group of kind, authentic people that just seemed so down to earth to me. And maybe that's because I spent so much time in the north and that's a southern thing. I don't know. But I just came and everyone just seemed so incredibly kind to me. And everyone said it's a great place to raise a kid and, get your kids down here and, the schools that like the schools and all that. And I have found all of that to be true so far.
Mhm.
And so I've been here for almost a year, and raising my kids and helping people, and so far so good.
You haven't even seen the best part of it yet. That's the cool thing for me, because as someone, you came here in the middle of the pandemic,
I did.
so you haven't got to see Downtown at Sundown yet, which is coming up. Danielle Hausnick was on the show with us a few months ago. Go check that out in the archives. She's the director of Main Street Russellville. We've got great shows coming up. They've got movies at the park. There's all kinds of fun stuff. Art Walk just came back. I mean,
Just did that. I did do that one. That was fun. That was my first time going to downtown and seeing it really alive like that, you know, because when I moved here, I mean, it was not alive when I first moved here last year, you know, and that was a really neat event. I enjoyed it, brought my kids down there, caught the music, ate a bunch of food, spent some money, good friends, good vibes. It was a great time.
You'll need to check out the Mount Nebo chicken fry.
Okay.
The Mount Nebo chicken fry is coming up in August. It is the premier chicken fry event in all of Arkansas. It's also a highly political event too. If you want to win political office, you have to show up at the Mount Nebo chicken fry in the state of Arkansas. Still very, very old school in that regard.
Okay.
So you need to go and check that out.
So save the date for that one.
Save the date, Mount Nebo chicken fry. I'll be emceeing, by the way, cheap plug. So make sure to get that checked out. You mentioned to me that that one of the stark contrasts for you was just how friendly people are down here. Were there other things that you noticed about the River Valley that were just kind of a culture shock, especially coming from Midwest and northern areas of the country?
Yeah, I think you know, yeah, definitely people just being super friendly was just really, really noticeable to me. I noticed another thing about Russellville is this, just from an outsider's perspective that was just new. I noticed there was a lot of two institutions, banks and churches.
Everywhere. Yes.
And so, of course, running a faith-based program, I'm glad to see it appears to be in one of the thriving industries of, of the area here economically. So that really stood out to me. And it was just, I just thought it was awesome. I thought it was gorgeous here.
Banks, churches, gas stations.
Gas stations.
You'll never not see one on a street somewhere. You'll always be financially ready, spiritually ready, and fueled up for the journey. That's right. All of those things are going to be true. We're talking to Spencer Kilgore here on the Spotlight. Stay tuned later on this week. We have got some great guests coming up, including representatives from Energy Arkansas, who are going to show you some tips on how to make your home energy efficient as the summer months are starting to warm up. So stay tuned for that and more coming up this week on the Spotlight. And if you miss any parts of our interviews, you can check them out wherever you download your podcasts. So I'd jump on that, click that subscribe button, give us 5 stars. I'd really appreciate that, like a lot. 5 stars for us. Spencer, I want to come back to you for just a few minutes. Let's go back to the Hope Center. You started at your job at the Hope Center. Walk me through your first 11 months at the Hope Center. What have you found to be challenging? What have you found to be encouraging? And where do you see your next 11 months?
Okay, now how do I take that big question and whittle it down without keeping your viewers here for?
I'm really good at that part.
Well, I'll start with the encouraging part. The encouraging part for me was coming in and meeting a lot of young men that had these crazy stories. And, you know, you mentioned earlier that, you know, addiction sometimes isn't fun to talk about, you know, but recovery is.
Sure.
You know, and so like when you get into the good part of this and you get on the other side of it, there's nothing more fun than recovery. You know, when you're getting people that were, you know, hooked on all this stuff and their life was in shambles, and then the healing begins to come and you start to see joy come in. There's a special brand of joy that comes with that kind of happiness.
Right.
When you know that you're leaving that mess of a life and you're into something new again, you know, and your values are changing and, you know, just everything's changing. That's exciting. So that was from day one up until, you know, currently now when I speak with you, the stories of people getting their life changed and redeemed just doesn't get old, you know. Now the challenge is, well, where would I start?
Right, sure.
I inherited a building that had, well, you're in real estate. I don't know how you would say it. I would say it had a lot of potential.
I'm not an agent, so I cannot legally say one way or the other, so I'll go with you on that.
Yeah, we'll say it had a lot of potential. It was the old Social Security office, I'm told, and so there were still these, windows in the, where people would come up and get their tickets and stuff like that, and there was just a lot of work that needed to be done in terms of just painting and getting the place, up to where I wanted it. And I can't even lie to you, I'm about halfway done with all
Sure.
that progress, right? So there's the bulk of my work is still before me to get the property where I want it. And then it was really just getting the word out. I really bumped into a lot of people. I was talking with Fred from the Rust Bus when I was new, and I was just cold calling people. Literally calling people that I heard about and saying,
Fred,
"Hi,
he's a great guy.
I'm Spence. This is what I'm doing, and can we hang out sometime? Can we be friends?"
Right.
And Fred was one of the first people to say, "I'm really glad that you reached out to me." And to say that I know of the Hope Center, and I know that you guys are helping people, but I haven't heard a whole lot about it. And so from a PR standpoint, one of the challenges was really just kind of rebranding and letting the community know that we have programs and services to offer people that might need help with addictions or other life controlling issues there. And so really just getting on social media and trying to be relevant and consistent on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, and just letting the community know. And from a leadership standpoint, just trying to see how we can fit into the helping people ecosystem in this area, and to say, how do we fit? How can we best serve and work alongside of, Main Street Mission or the Salvation Army or, Freedom House and all these different places that are geared to helping people. How can we accommodate that? Is there a way that we can serve or just be of service to people here in the area too? Our staff love to do community outreach, so I'm always just looking around to see if there might be something that we can leverage and get our guys out there just to help the community too, just from a morale standpoint. So that was tough early on. And then the rest was just finances. It takes money to run a nonprofit, and we're totally donor supported, and so just really pounding the pavement and just trying to let people know what we're doing and seeing if they would invest into the vision there financially, so we can make sure that we always have a bed available for someone that needs help, regardless of what their financial circumstances are.
You're talking about trying to get the word out and trying to do service projects, that kind of thing for the community, but you were trying to do that in the middle of a pandemic.
I was.
How did that go?
Well, I had a lot of phone calls.
Yeah.
Had a lot of emails. Not a whole lot of meetings in the first half. I do want to give a shout out to New Life Church, because right smack dab in the middle of this thing, they did send me some people to do a service project and just blessed our socks off and helping out with some things there in the inside of the Hope Center.
That's Mark Pegley's.
That's
he's a good man.
Mark Pegley used to be my youth pastor.
Wow.
In Northeast Ohio, when I was a knucklehead teenager that used to come in and just use his church for the basketball court and come in just to shoot hoops. He was my youth pastor. I didn't remember. He didn't remember. I moved here, came to New Life, got my home church, and then we connected the dots. And so I said, "Oh my gosh, I've known you for forever."
Small world.
Small world.
To come from Ohio to Russellville, Arkansas.
Very small world. Yes.
That's interesting to me. How are you able to overcome the pandemic side of this, starting a new? Let's set the table for some folks who may not know, how the nonprofit world works. I mean, it's hard to ask for cash on anything, because most people like to donate time, but donating money is difficult for most folks. So every nonprofit needs money. Every one of them does. But you're in the middle of a pandemic. People have lost their jobs. You can't necessarily go out and do service projects because you don't want to get the virus. And you just started your job here. How much prayer was involved in all of this?
more than we could ever imagine.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely boatloads of prayer, because I quickly realized, and I can't do this by myself.
Yeah.
Not only do I need help from on high, but I need other people to come alongside me and try to help me to the best that they can too.
Let's talk about those other people.
Yeah, well, Pastor Mark has been fantastic, and I've just met some other people that have been faithful to come out and volunteer and help out, and different churches are letting us come out and share at their churches on Sunday mornings now. So we're booked probably 2 Sundays out of every month now for our ministry outreach team that comes out to different churches now. So that's been super exciting. Main Street Mission's been fantastic. Tyson, we're doing our first banquet and silent auction on October 5th at Welcome Hill Event Center. We've gotten a bunch of churches and businesses to sponsor tables and come out and support us financially that way. Pasta Grill decided to cater it, and so big shout out to David for deciding to help us out and partner
David's a
with us
good
on
dude.
that.
Yeah.
Fantastic, man.
Mhm.
And those were just some examples of some people and some companies that, as things started to open up a little bit, too, I was able to come out and play and actually
Right.
meet some people.
Sure.
And then it's gotten a little bit easier since then. But from a leadership standpoint, at first it was really just our team deciding that we're going to be, we have it made up in our mind that we are going to be successful. We're going to do this. It may take longer than we want. We might have to work longer and harder than we wanted to. But we know that there's a vision there. We know it's a good vision. We know that it has, integrity. We know that people are going to be helped and that families are going to be reunited. And when you believe so passionately about something like that, then you just go until the vision comes to fruition. And I'm getting there.
Let's talk about the other side of addiction very quickly here, because I think we focus a lot on the addict. We focus a lot on their story. We focus a lot on how they can get through the recovery. But while they're gone for a year, their peripheral circle is also deeply affected, their family side of this. For some of them, the family is the reason they're in there, but for others, they're also deeply affected. So for family members who are a little bit on the edge about, I don't know that I want to send my loved one away for a year, can you ease their minds right now?
Yeah. That's a totally understandable, question to wrestle with if you have a loved one that might be struggling with addiction, right? Well, for one, Zoom is our friends. So I'm thinking of a particular married gentleman that's in our program that we're doing Zoom sessions with him and his wife right now every Monday. We do family days once a month where family is invited to come out and hang out with us and spend the day together. And when our guys are in the program, they get passes. So the longer that they're in the program, the passes get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And so they'll have time to be able to go out and go see their family as well. And they get phone calls and visits and FaceTime with the kids and all of that kind of stuff too. So, we are all about restoring the whole family. And so to the extent that we can do stuff like that to keep families together, that's our heart. We want families to be restored here.
There may be some critics, though, that say, hey, the separation of family and addict may be just as tough. Is that not a trigger at some point?
The separation from someone leaving their family?
Sure.
To be with us for a year?
Yeah.
Would that be a trigger? For the addict or for the family?
Yes, both.
Well, my experience tells me more often than not, if someone has an addiction problem and they have to separate from the family and come with us for a year, although it's sad and there's obviously some emotional moments that happen with that, usually my experience is that the family's pretty grateful, because when they're with us getting help, then guess what? They're not out in their addiction.
Right.
I wish I could say it was that black and white and that simple. Of course, this is people we're talking about.
Right.
So it's not. But my experience is that usually families are pretty grateful, and although they just miss the heck out of them, and they still want to be with them, they know that it's ultimately going to serve for the good of the whole family.
Spencer, give out that number and that website for folks who might be looking to get some more information or might be looking for help.
Absolutely. You can call me at 281-743-2713, and you can visit us online at www.projecthoperc.com/the-hope-center.
And I will make a graphic, and it will be at the bottom of your screen. If you're looking at this right now, it's right there. You can see it there. And Spencer Kilgore, thanks so much for joining us here on the Spotlight today. I appreciate your time, and thank you for the good work that you're doing.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for us on the Spotlight here today. Join us later on this week as we've got energy-saving tips for your home and a myriad of guests. I can't wait to reveal them to you. You just can't miss a single episode. It's every day at 3. And if you've missed any part of this interview, you can check us out on YouTube. You can check out the Facebook archives or wherever you subscribe to podcasts. For now, I'm Drew Brent. Thanks so much for joining us on the Spotlight. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.